going to open budget workshop meeting. No? It's not a closed session.
Yeah.
It's an open session. Are we just calling the meeting to order?
Yep.
I haven't done one of these. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. The budget workshop.
Do you want to hit the lights a little more, Margaret?
Yeah, especially back there. Yeah.
No? You just said budget workshop.
I just turned everybody on, it was on.
Thank you.
You guys want to know what hot is?
I usually stand next to it.
Okay, good evening, council, public. Tonight we're going to have a budget workshop for the fiscal year 1920 budget. Agenda to the budget workshop. We'll go over pretty quickly the budget schedule, some information on the document itself. The approach we use as a city on developing the budget, some of the budgetary highlights, some analysis section which has been shortened from the prior year, and then we'll do some questions. So very similar to previous years, you know, developing this budget is a quite long process that starts in February, developing the approach and the document format. In March, the key item being the strategic planning with council, where we all get together and share our brilliant ideas. In April and May, we start meeting with department heads to go over the budgets they've prepared. And then here we are in June, presenting the budget to your body. So really quickly, some information on the document itself. Some of the key elements, the city manager's message, which will be coming in the final document when we present it in 2 weeks. The summary data includes a lot of good, easy to read information, a lot of information on the capital improvement projects. The fund, each fund that the city maintains has a detailed schedule, and the same with the departments. And then in the appendices, there's some information on long-term debt, personnel schedules, policies and procedures, quite a few different things. And so the information in the budget is prepared by major category, and so it summarized data from the account detail into into revenues and expenditures by major category: taxes, charges for services, grants, and then on the expenditure side, what they call natural classification, salaries and benefits, operations, and so on. In the fund section, which has the detail for each of the city's funds, there are 2 years of actual data. There is the current year that we're in, the adjusted budget, and an estimated actual column, and then there's the department requested column, the city manager recommended column, and then there's 2 years of projections as well. So there's 6 years worth of data that we're trying to keep in that one schedule for comparison purposes. When you get to the department section, it has a really good overview of the departments and what they do, each of the departments' outcomes and accomplishments from the prior years, and their goals and objectives for the current year, as well as how that meets actual dollars. Again, some sections to note in the document is the city manager's message, which will be included next time, a city-wide summary on page 14, a general fund summary on page 16, of course Measure I and Measure Z detail on pages 25 and 26, and then information on the capital improvement program on page 27. And the budget approach, and this is, I think, with me included, this is the 3rd time we've all done a budget together, so we're all pretty familiar with the approach. It is a very collaborative approach, including the council and staff and department heads. It's very strategic, focused on priorities and council goals. This year, it's a continued focus on project completion, a continued emphasis on efficiencies and reducing costs. Service delivery enhancements and effectiveness is always a key fundamental. And the city's investments are prioritized in operating efficiencies and cost control, infrastructure and capital, and economic development. This is the list of council priorities that were all voted on by your council. I don't think I'm gonna read through it all, but public safety and road improvements being the top priorities, along with some ordinance updates, art projects, of course completion of the annexation, and several other priorities. So getting into some of the highlights and the actual numbers of the budget.
Those priorities are the ones that we worked on during our goal setting.
So when you read this budget, you'll see that the total city revenues are budgeted about 12.7 million, and the total city expenditures are budgeted about 6.3 million. Obviously, that's a difference of about 3.7 million, and that schedule off to the right kind of shows what that difference, where those differences are, why the expenditures are greater than the revenues. And the majority of it is the 2.5 million in storm repair projects that we've already received. Mostly insurance proceeds, and what we haven't, 93% of it will be covered by FEMA and the state at the end of the day. So that's the biggest majority. We'll get into the small deficits in the general fund and water fund and sewer fund. And the others are basically small special revenue funds where the revenues are very inconsistent and hard to budget, but they do have some minor expenses that we do keep a budget for every year. So there's cash in those funds. We're not spending money we don't have. Of that 6.3 million, 5.6 of it is personnel, 4.1 is operations, 1.6 million for debt service, and about 5 million in capital improvement projects. Again, that includes the 2.5 million in storm repair projects. And just to state again that the amount of expenditures over revenues is project related. Revenues to fund these projects were received in prior years. This is a list of the capital improvement projects that are included in this budget.
Any questions on any of them that you'd like to?
Just going back for a second on the city council, were those weighted according to?
Yes.
Okay. That's
Yes. And
So
so
they
some
were
of them were really close, so we usually just do like, 5 or 6, but you had so many that were really close, so we put them all down, so that we're gonna try to attempt to, all of them.
It's like the CIP list.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do they mean by vehicles marked?
Police vehicles.
The graphics on the vehicles?
Well, opposed to a non-marked police vehicle, it's a
Opposed to like what I drive, plain car.
So we should be all one car short after this budget season for the.
One and a half,
One and a half.
basically.
1.5. So somebody's gonna have to drive the half car.
So who drives the motorcycle?
We got a grant for part of the K-9 unit. We had 38,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, but for the K-9, so it'll be in there. So we have to pay for part of that.
Moving on, a summary, it's blocked a little bit, but you're not missing anything from what's behind the chairs, besides the total.
You can do that, Chad.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. Kevin.
Thank you. And these changes, the cost of these changes are included in the budget, and Kelly, one of the items in the meeting, upcoming meeting, Kelly will be addressing these changes, so we don't need to discuss them now, and then she'll go ahead and cover.
Unless you have any questions on any of them, they're there, but I'm just gonna give a breakdown of anybody we're adding and subtracting and whatever.
So as I mentioned before, when we were looking at the difference between expenditures and revenues, this is some details of the general fund budget. There is a $131,000 deficit estimated in the general fund this year that we're recommending. It is totally one-time expenditure. There's about $1 million of one-time expenditures that are budgeted in that general fund. I'm saying it's not structurally deficit. We're recommending to choose to spend $131,000 in reserves to complete these projects one time. The budget has a strong focus on public safety, roads, human capital, project execution, cost control, and also economic development. The reconciliation to the right.
And
Go ahead.
Nick, on some of that deficit, we actually may be moving some money over from this year's budget.
Yeah,
That deficit of the 131.
So the first two lines on the reconciliation right there, the 18-19 adjusted budget deficit, that's with all the budget adjustments that have been made too far, that's where we're at today. When I ran some estimated actual numbers, it looks like we'll have a surplus of about 115. So that translates to about 500,000 in savings from where the adjusted budget is to where we expect to be from rolling over projects, cost savings on open positions. It's $515,000 surplus, but the difference is about 500,000. Does that make sense? Projects that we know are being carried over at this point are the public safety camera system, the SB1 project for 2nd Street, a grinding project, which Doug isn't here, but we have stuff.
A huge pile.
We have a huge pile of old construction stuff that we pull up from the roads that we grind up and use it for base.
Yeah. It's a huge savings that we have that. I wish he was here to tell me the
Yeah.
difference of what it would cost us to grind it versus we had to go out and buy that base.
It's a lot.
It's like, 3 times more than.
And we have our own grinder, right?
We know somebody comes in to grind.
Yeah,
it
we
for
get a
us.
contractor to come in and grind it
That's
all
why
up.
there's a cost to it, because it's expensive to get it ground up.
It's a different grinder than we use to grind up the asphalt from the street. We grind it up from the street, it goes into the dump truck, we dump it out at the property, and then somebody comes in and...
Right. Yeah, it's more of a fine grind for roses.
Well, just a
So,
question looking to the future, can we get an estimate on how much one of those grinders would cost?
I don't know, it depends how much.
yeah, my understanding is that it's a pretty bad machine. Like, it eats buildings. And it's,
Probably out of our budget.
yeah.
Fair enough.
It certainly could find out for you.
Well, if it is within our budgetary grasp, maybe it may serve us long-term to
Good.
have that capability.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to grind up a building?
I would love to. So on the bottom, if you're looking at the general fund budget page, at the bottom line, it's going to show a deficit of $313,000. When you add back those projects that we're carrying forward, it's about $131,000, and that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. It's $132,000 deficit after add back carryover projects, which is about 2% of budget appropriations. Estimated ending fund balance, including that, is still over 60% at the end of 1920, or $3.8 million, which is a very, very healthy position to be for the city.
And the estimated surplus, we'll know better, like in August actually, is when all the books are closed, but Nick is very conservative on those in his numbers, so I'm hoping that'll be a higher number.
So what you're saying is the actuals that will end at the end of June, once you get the figures, you're expecting it to take care of this deficit.
I hope so. I don't know if it'll take care of the whole deficit, but there may be maybe more.
And if
for
we
the
don't take
115.
care of the deficit,
Pardon?
if we don't take care of the deficit, where are we gonna get the money from?
That's part of the general fund reserve,
Reserves?
yeah. And we're only asking that because there's all the projects that are in there. We're trying to cover the projects that we've listed, which,
So there's a chance we might not even get through all those projects and not get that money in reserve and.
Historically, since I've been here, that's kind of been what's happening. We shoot to do a lot of projects, and because of the limited time and people we have, we just don't get them all done.
fire, flood. Hope those don't happen, but there's a lot of interruptions in the year to try to get them all done. We have high hopes, we try.
I guess we're getting tornadoes this year. So.
Yeah, no.
Sweet.
No, thank you.
And just like Margaret was saying, the 155,000 expected surplus from 1819 is conservative. And we'll have a better number in the fall, which we will bring back to your body and getting you guidance on or direction on how that's to be spent. Costs are increasing, personnel costs. I have a few slides in here on the status of the CalPERS situation. And just in generally, I've always alluded to the fact that healthcare is volatile and can go up and down. I would change that to say it's not as volatile lately, it's pretty steady, but it's always up.
A lot slower than it was in the years past, but it does creep up a little bit.
Right, but volatility would indicate that it could go up or down. This is just steady up, not very fast. But
And the major stability of that is because we went to the self-funded program with REMA and made a huge difference in what the rates are going up elsewhere.
And then one other thing that is affecting this year's budget is increased costs for other insurances, property and liability. Those saw quite a bit of increase. REMIF is making some changes to be more fiscally sound, and we've had some claims in the last few years, and all those things combined have resulted in increased costs for.
Yeah, the major thing is the cost with all the fires and floods. This is national. This is not just a California problem that's happening now. The insurances are going way up on property and liability, especially property.
A couple updated slides about the CalPERS situation. We've been over these the last couple of years. Here's an updated graph of kind of where things are. The bottom line being the miscellaneous plan normal cost. The first blue line being the safety normal cost. The green boxes being the miscellaneous UAL, safety UAL, and then the side fund lease, which we completed a couple years ago. That orange line indicates where the cost would have been pre-pension obligation bonds. So you can see a couple years of we're saving in the short term. A couple years have increased greater than they would have been. Overall, it's still been worthwhile. Just to point out some of the numbers, and this is citywide. This is including all funds. 1819 is up. The 1920 budget is up from this 2018 year end, $131,000 citywide. When we get to that peak year of the fiscal year into 2025, that's a $410,000 increase. That'll be made up by the general fund and the enterprise funds. And that increase, it's a $280,000 increase from now, and we'll have to sustain that budget for it looks like about a period of 10 years. And that is as long as things don't get worse at CalPERS. Recent conversations with CalPERS, they're saying that their returns for the first three quarters of this fiscal year, which will end in June, their investments have earned 2.8%, which is slightly less than their projected 7%.
Slightly less.
Yeah. So I mean, they're trying to do some changes up there at CalPERS. We got some couple of new members, and hopefully they'll work on some other investments that they're looking at.
They're managing mammoth amounts of money and they're getting a 2.8%.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
It's a similar slide. This is basically just the general fund. It basically shows the same trend, just with the specific costs. And I did this last year. It put together some like longer term projections for the general fund. I have them for the sewer and water fund if anybody's interested to see them. And kind of what it includes is including the pension cost increases that we're talking about, including like a 3% assumption on operating costs, utilities, contractual agreement. We know all those costs just continue to rise. The debt service that we're currently on the hook for, and minimal amounts of capital projects. This is kind of what the long-term trend looks like, with a 1% revenue growth projected, which looks great. I mean, we would love for that to be the case. If we start looking at no revenue growth, the situation changes very rapidly. And if we look at a 1% revenue decline, you can see, in 2026, without making changes to what we're doing, we would need to
This is with no changes, we would definitely start getting that situation, there would be changes happening, but yeah. But 1% is a pretty conservative number we're looking at.
A couple more general fund highlights. This slide shows the change from last year to this year on department allocations in the general fund and their percentage share, and any variances up or down. I think the parks, buildings, and grounds budget decrease is completely due to the Carnegie remodel not being in 1819 and not in 1920, so it's not that we're cutting the budget for parks. It's just that project isn't included in that budget anymore. And graphically, you can kind of see the changes. The water fund. The revenues, the operating costs in the water enterprise fund have caught up with the last rate increases. A budget deficit in the water fund of $128,000 after the projects that are being carried over is primarily the result of a one-time cost. The difference, however, is a structural deficit of $26,000. This is 1% of appropriated expenditures, but what it is showing is that something needs to happen with the water fund. The reserves there are reserves in the water fund. They could use some help. They would be estimated to be about 13%. At the end of this year, and this can be attributed almost directly to increased pension costs. The city plans to study rates and costs and will continue to sustain the enterprise activities in the most effective way possible. The sewer fund, on the other hand, is in much better shape. The sewer operating fund continues to stay in a very favorable financial position. While a budget deficit in the sewer fund of $288,000 after carryover projects, this amount is made up entirely of one-time expenditures. I think, do I have it on there?
Quite a few projects.
Yeah, there's about $500,000 worth of projects in the sewer fund, and it has the reserve. I mean, it has the reserves to sustain that. The reserve levels at the end of this year are expected to be about 87%, which is extremely healthy. The slide's blank. It's Kenny's favorite $ property tax distribution. I've been working with the county to get some very accurate, updated property tax distribution information. The schedule, there was some controversy on the schedule that had been presented before when the fire district was having their financial woes, and we realized that how that schedule calculated probably wasn't the most accurate. And so I'm fixing that to get the best data possible. This schedule is the sales tax distribution. You'll see the city of Lakeport actually does collect quite a bit of property tax, not as much as the state.
Use sales tax.
Sales tax, sorry. But a fair chunk, and you know, a lot of that is attributable to the cent and a half that we collect from Measure I and Measure Z. This is a schedule, a lot of numbers. I think the main thing to take out, this is citywide appropriation of budget by department. And you can kind of see how much of it is in salaries and benefits, operations, debt service, capital outlay by department.
And it is a service organization, so it's always going to be high on the employee costs.
Yeah, I think a great thing to take away from this city is that, I mean, we're budgeting to spend just as much in capital outlay as we are in salaries and benefits, which that's not very common when you're in the, you know, in municipal services. Proposed uses of Measure I, you know, supplementing general fund road and maintenance, parks, buildings and grounds, $717 on West Shore Pool, which is helping support the swimming activities and police activities. In Measure Z, the schedule is probably a little hard to read on the screen, but there are quite a few projects that are being budgeted out of Measure Z. 2 more police vehicles, one of which is grant funded, partially grant funded, I should say. A new pickup for the road crew. The public safety camera system, which is being rolled forward. Several streets that'll be like in-house street projects that are budgeted out of Measure Z proceeds. Totaling $326,000. Some upgraded tables, trash receptacles at Library Park. A slip-in water tank for the dump truck. This is one of Doug's requests, and I think he discussed it at a previous meeting. Basically, to turn one of our dump trucks into a water truck to be used in not only for road projects, but in the event of a disaster, we would have a water truck to not just help support firefighting activities, but if we needed to use it ourselves, we'd have that capacity. And then the big road project, which is completing South Main Street from Peckham Court to the city limits, which is a very expensive project. It requires a complete reconstruction of that road.
And this has all been vetted through the Measure Z committee, the project.
Just a real quick couple charts here. They kind of speak for themselves, showing the trend of how revenues and expenditures are increasing. You can see where Measure Z kind of came to the picture and really helped out. The key takeaway from this slide is basically to show how much of the general fund revenue base is taxes, primarily sales tax. Another trend on expenditures by classification over time. You see our capital improvement budgets have been steadily increased in the last few years, getting more projects done. The fund balance trend over the last 10 years, it's been pretty steady, some ups and downs, but very healthy. Citywide sources by activities. This is citywide, which activities collect the revenues. General fund, sales tax, property tax being the highest. Water and sewer charges for services, kind of right behind it. Then a citywide analysis, expenditures by category. Once again, kind of comparing salaries and benefits to the rest of the classifications. And we have time for some questions.
So we had those remote monitoring water water measuring devices, and then they said that, that would be accurate and blah, 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 and then people would be freed up to do other stuff. Is that the kind of, there's not somebody necessarily here from that department, but is that something we're realizing savings from that, not having to have somebody driving around on a regular basis doing that, just having it feed into a computer and bill everybody?
Yeah, the automated metering service, yeah, absolutely. That saves a lot of man hours, and so that goes to other items. We don't have to dedicate it because they can drive around and basically read the route and the whole route in about 3.5 hours with a van, and not have to read every meter individually. So it picks it up and does it automatically. And then it also provides some good data on leak detection and for water loss. And so we can compare what we supplied the system versus what's been used. And so if there's a water loss issue, we can start addressing that. And since it was a 2014 project, the meters are very accurate at this point too. So that's also a savings. So,
Great.
Yeah.
So then the people would have plenty of time to do other things in the water department?
Yes, like maintaining hydrants and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. You have in there some trash receptacles and benches. We have stuff that we never finished on Main Street. Do we have anything, benches, trash, bicycle racks planned for Main Street?
Those are not on this year's budget, but council wants us to take a look at that. Do we have I don't know the dollar amount together for that yet. I kept hoping to do an outreach to some of the service clubs and see if they would adopt a bench or two downtown, just this and that night.
I know we've talked about donating the benches, but it seems like I don't think we have any bicycle racks at all. And there's only a few trash cans, and the trash cans, I don't know.
So we do, in the document, there is like a 5 to 6 year capital improvement program, and if my memory serves me correctly, there is a line in there, it's a couple years out, but that's always something that we can finagle
We
and
can bring
move
back
up.
some costs and see what that is and feed that into the budget.
The ones that we're replacing in Library Park, are they wrecked or?
That's a dumb question.
Doug, unfortunately, is out of town.
Okay, well, maybe
But
we
we
can
could-
look at that, because
And
if we
we-
can keep using those a little longer, maybe we can add some on Main Street and then keep working on the benches and try and get a bike rack.
That sounds good. We'll get some costs on that. and
Okay.
Bring that back to the next, for the budget adoption meeting, so we can deal with those guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up benches, because I
It's
received
getting
an
really
email
cute
a
down
few
there.
weeks back
Yeah.
from someone who was starting to enjoy the walking path. And, but she said she and some of her friends that are the same age, they get kind of tired on the walking path, so it would be great to have those benches. Yeah.
Well, and the trees are getting big, and
It would be
it'll
nice.
be nice
It would
to
be
be able
nice,
to
yes.
sit down.
Even if we just, get half of them at this time or something, but
Right.
some of the benches down there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we'll bring that back and hopefully get some costs for you. Hopefully I can do it within 2 weeks, but anyway, we'll bring that back, and if it's not, by next.
I don't know how we kind of missed that in our workshop.
I know.
But there's always something, that's why we do this again, I guess,
We
right?
had so many projects, and I guess we could, as council looks through the projects, there's something they would rather see us postponing, that's total up to council discretion too, and bring that in instead, so please take a look at those and
Okay.
see if there's something you'd like to
Thank you.
switch out.
Any other comments for Nick? Thank you very much, Nick. That was
Nice report.
Thank you.
very informative.
Thanks for printing it out, saved me $20.
Thank you all for coming and sitting with us through our budget workshop. I hope you found it all as informative as we did. So now we will go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we have roll call.
Councilmember Mattina.
Here.
Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Councilmember Barnett.
Here.
Councilmember Spur.
Present.
And Mayor Barnes.
Here. Nick, would you lead us in the pledge?
Ready to begin?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. Do we have any urgency items? Okay.
If no one has any changes, I would like to make a motion to accept the agenda as posted.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. The following consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the council at one time without any discussion. Any council member may request that an item be pulled from the consent agenda. Ordinances. Waive the reading except by title of any ordinance under consideration at this meeting for either introduction or passage per government code. Minutes. Approve the minutes of the City Council regular meeting of May 21st, 2019. Renew the emergency resolution, Mendocino Complex Fire. Confirm the continuing existence of a local emergency for the Mendocino Complex Fire. Renew the emergency resolution, February 2019 storms. Confirm the continuing existence of a local emergency for the February 2019 storms. Grand jury. Approve response to the Lake County Grand Jury regarding Lamson Field. Is there anyone who would like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Anyone from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as posted.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, public input. There's got to be somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Suzanne Lyons. You probably already know how to spell my name, so I don't have to write it down. Something was just brought up about the benches. The walking path, apparently the benches were purchased for the walking path at least 2 months ago. So I would really love it if this council would get the word out to the department that needs to put those benches in, that they need to be put in. You guys are the people that decided where they should be. The one bench that's in is down by the library. That bench was a donation. I donated the bench. Suzanne Russell donated the pad. But they did tell us at 2 meetings ago at Parks and Rec that the benches had been purchased and were here. So we would really like to see them set. One of them is supposed to be set down at 5th Street, there by the, just north of the, what am I trying to say? The yacht club. And the other one is supposed to be up there by that little building that's by Natural High. So yeah, if you would let them know that we'd like to see them set, that would be really nice. And then those people that walk that path would have some place to sit down. We do see people sitting there at the one in the library.
So, Suzanne, the one that's down by Natural High, are you talking about the bathroom area or are you talking about the building area?
By Natural High, no, up by that little building, that's the little hairdresser.
The hairdresser,
That's where,
okay.
yeah, that's where it's
Okay.
supposed to go, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other public comment? And we have a presentation, and I'm going to hand it over to Margaret.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The Lakeport staff has decided to create a scholarship program for one of their own employees' child, and it's donations by all the employees for the scholarship. And we're hoping this is an ongoing every year. We'll have a scholarship for someone's child. So our first recipient this year, it is my pleasure to introduce Madison Ferguson.
Aww.
Come on up, Madison. I'm just going to read a little bit about Madison. Madison is a 2019 graduate of Clear Lake High School. She is planning on attending the Institute of Medical Aesthetics in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she wants to become an expert in the field of medical esthetician. While attending Clear Lake High, she was involved in multiple sports programs throughout the year. She was named All-League in all 4 years of high school for her softball playing, and 3 years she was the All-League for her high school volleyball team. So if that's not enough, she also joined the wrestling team her sophomore year in high school. She was also named Female Athlete of the Year in 2019 for all her sports accomplishments. One of Madison's greatest school achievements was organizing Heart Healthy Week for the Lakeport Unified School District as her senior project, which was designed to teach younger students the importance of learning to live a healthy lifestyle, which also taught her the importance of working within her community. Madison also volunteered multiple times at the Seventh-day Adventist Church and Kelseyville High School evacuation centers during the fires in Lake County by setting up tents and organizing donations to assist the fire victims. Throughout high school, she worked at Quail Run Fitness and Park Place Restaurant and found it challenging to balance school, work, and sports, which she said made her fully aware of the commitment it takes to succeed and to find balance. One of her many personal goals, and one of my favorites she listed, but she had many, is to establish herself as a successful woman and show her parents that her efforts were worth the sacrifice they made while raising her. She stated my parents dedicated a lifetime of making sure I succeeded no matter what I've done, and I know I would make them proud if I succeed in my career choice. Madison, I know they're very proud of you, and you are a success. So, thank you.
Can we get a picture of these two?
Yeah. A bad hair day this summer.
That's okay, I'm crying, so we're good.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Thank you. That's awesome.
That was really cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job.
The scholarship was for $600 from the employees.
And I mean, it's amazing that the employees just kind of got together and made this happen for one of their own. I think that's really awesome, and I love seeing that kind of thing. That's what makes me that makes me love being here and being in Lakeport and being, So congratulations, and
Well deserved.
much success in all your endeavors.
Thank you.
Appreciate everybody's effort. Thank you very much.
All right. Administrative Service Director, Electronic Content Management Software. Kelly.
All right, I'm gonna step up here. It's easier for me. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. The City Council stated as a goal a few years back to work towards digitizing city records. So since that time, staff has been diligently researching various electronic content management softwares. Hillary's here with me tonight. Hillary's done an extensive amount of research on top of her regular duties to figure out which software is a very daunting task, to figure out which software is going to work best for the city. take us into the future. So we historically have not had any type of system that overarches all of the city records. There are, of course, the police have a records management system. CDD has had a permitting software, a very bad one, which they are working towards also replacing. It's become very clear that in order for us to be operate more efficiently, be more transparent, and be able to do things like redact documents that maybe need to go out, that in public records requests, and just to respond to the public, the needs of the public and the needs of attorneys and various customers that we have, that we needed this software. So we have selected Laserfiche as the electronic content management software. We tried various iterations of, we looked at other softwares besides Laserfiche. Then we looked at Laserfiche and looked at different providers of Laserfiche. And then we looked at different ways of purchasing. So there was like a lease to own, there was subscription based. And what we've landed on is a purchase of the licenses with an annual maintenance, and it would be cloud-based so that the police department and other departments could access more easily. And so we're requesting from the council the approval of the software. In our, because we had so many iterations, we left one project out, and so I'm also asking that we add $2,250 to what the staff report listed, to add another project to assist with implementation. It's basically some programming, I guess, that needs to be written that would help us in the records management portion. And so I gave you a amended motion that includes that new dollar amount. So that's before you.
Yeah, just in the police department, the hundreds and hundreds of hours that they have to put in for court requests on documents, and then we have, there's certain redactions that have to be done. It's been hundreds of man hours.
And still going.
And still going. Still got
That's
more.
terrible. Yeah, so when there's court cases too, it's not just public records requests,
Yeah,
but
okay.
court cases and things like that. But yeah, it's just time to get this moving forward. So if there's any questions of Hillary or myself.
Well, I was looking at the, I guess the way they format it, and you have certain fields and stuff like that, so they would, I mean, you lock in certain things, whether it's a permit or whatever happens to be, and then by name and by that, so you could just like bring it up, and they're gonna, and I understand that they're giving training on that, so that when you have all these documents scanned and entered in, you can at least find them.
Yes.
I know that that's been an issue with, I mean, with paper, it's like, it's impossible if you got 700 files in different boxes, at least if you could get it all together. But is this something that's going to require you to go back and like dig through the archives and pay some, or get some kind of a person to go through and bring that all in?
So our plan of action is to start with the city clerk and the human resources department. We've been digitizing records in like a PDF format. They still need to go through a conversion process to the Laserfiche format.
So you can find them, basically.
So yeah, so that it will create metadata, which is kind of the whole purpose of a records management system. So yes, it will make searchability much better. We don't have the intention of going backwards over to Carnegie and scanning things in right away. Ultimately, that would be the goal, but we just want to kind of get something moving forward. And certainly we have a lot of records that are held electronically, but they do need to go through a conversion process, which isn't.
So that would be the first step, rather than going through the paper.
Yes.
Eventually, we're gonna probably have to hire some staff someday, not even right now, to go back and start the community development department. They have all the paper, but we definitely, find a starting point. The longer we wait, the longer we have to go back. And
Paper
so we
continues
want to
to
get
run.
on board to start moving forward, yeah.
Well, there's got to be a point, and I guess someone like Kevin might know that it would not be cost effective. It would be better just to send somebody over there and fight through it rather than go through and digitize all of the old stuff when you only get so many requests, pre like 2000 or 1995 or 1985, and it's like, we'll just look those up. We'll send someone over there if we have to, because going through and doing voluminous amounts of years that you may never get requests for, so you got to kind of do a cost-benefit analysis on whether or not you would even be worthwhile to do it, and then you could just hire some kind of intern that says, okay, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's your flashlight.
Some things will definitely be good for us to have better over there, but some things can wait.
I thought it was exciting to see that there was modules available and you could work it through everybody else and finally get into the 20th or 21st century.
Yeah, and this program had the most capability of automating processes as well, like employee onboarding or even the agenda management process. We can kind of build something. A lot of cities go out and purchase specific softwares for all these different processes, and it's very expensive. This program has the ability, the more we learn it, the more we dig into it, to do some of those things also. So.
Okay, I have a few questions. First of all, it says in one of the paragraphs that we would have to do our own backups. How is that going to take place?
That actually was incorrect, so we've had that corrected. We will not be doing our own backups. They will do our backups for us, because it's hosted on the cloud. So the contract will be amended to fix that.
Okay, and then the other thing is, because it's on the cloud, is the software itself going to be on the cloud, or is it the software is going to be on a server here and just the data is going to be on the cloud?
The software is on the cloud.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I seen that there was 5 full licenses and 5 view-only licenses. So that means there can be 10 concurrent people working at the same time?
Yes.
And are you guys going to do sort of like what the county does, to where you have a kiosk in the front and have the public be able to look up records?
Not at this point.
Not for a while.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I mean, if you go to the county,
Yeah.
they've got
You can go
kiosks there
get
where
your-
they can go and look up stuff.
So ultimately, we would like to get a portal
For them.
that the public can look in either via the internet or a kiosk if we so choose. But we would need to build up a good database of records,
Right.
and we would have to go through a process of figuring out which ones are most
Right,
looked at.
and select which ones are confidential, which ones are not. and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, that takes a lot of work. Another question I had is, I seen where you're gonna pay X amount of dollars for all the software and the licenses and yada, 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 and then you're gonna pay a maintenance fee on a yearly basis. Is there a way to get them not to increase that maintenance fee? It doesn't say anything about the year after, or the year after, or the year after. Is there a way that you can say, well, for this maintenance fee, we want that locked in for 5 years or something like that, so there's no increases?
I don't recall, I don't,
Oh, I'm sorry. We don't have that in there, but I have, in researching other cities that have purchased Laserfish, I have seen where they've gotten that kind of an assurance. We do pay the support is annual, so in essence, it's like a new contract each time.
Right.
what we were
That
told
might be
was there was
something we
no break.
And see, that's what I'm
There wasn't a
saying
price
is
break.
You got yourself naturally the startup fee with all the software, whatever, and then you got a maintenance fee for the first year. Okay, well then, the second year, they could raise it to 10,000 instead of 7,000.
They can, but there are other providers that we can also go to.
So once
They
you've
do
got
that.
the software, they'll take over their software.
There's a lot of competitors for this business, so,
I'm just curious.
yeah, we can always analyze that on a year-by-year basis if they're jacking the rates way up,
Okay.
yeah.
That's basically it, and according to what Kenny was talking about, how you have to have all these paper things, after a certain time, the paper things will hit their life expectancy and you wouldn't need them in the system, so if you start with the newest stuff and work backwards, by the time you get to the backwards, some of them will fall off, so.
Yeah, there is destruction
Possibly.
dates, yeah.
Yeah, most of the stuff that we would be interested in that's old would be the permanent records.
Right, and then, is there any software that we're gonna be giving up or not using anymore because we're gonna use this? I mean,
No, we've never had a system.
okay, so like the police has a records thing, if
It's
theirs
different
ties in?
records though. So those police records are for police reports and just law enforcement, but they have a lot of other records. They have, contracts and employee files and just sort of general administrative business that also needs to be held in a system, and their system is, very strict, very restrictive only to police reporting, basically.
Yeah, we don't want to mix that with the police criminal data. And another good example, in addition to what Kelly said, would be like internal affairs investigations, internal investigations. We don't have any kind of system for that, so that's why we're very interested in, we can utilize the city system for that kind of data,
Okay.
rather than having all this paper. And then it also, there's a benefit in that we have a better ability to track when that stuff should be gotten rid of. Also because there's time limits on how long you have to keep it. And
Right.
if you're just dealing with piles of paper, sometimes that can get lost in the mix, and now you haven't destroyed it when maybe you should have.
Or could have. Yeah, I was just thinking if there was anything that's gonna overlap each other and you're not doing things redundantly. So.
I haven't really looked at the community development software to see if there's an overlap, but typically what cities do or agencies do is they might have, like, say, their CDD software talk to the Laserfiche and migrate those records over so that they're held in both systems. And the advantage of that would be that Laserfiche would monitor when they need to be destroyed. So, I mean, we can always do that. And the finance software too, that's another big one, where this Laserfiche can pull in some of their data and do stuff with it. I mean, there's actually a lot of possibilities, but for sure it can manage the records and destroy them when needed. Right now, their system won't do that. So.
Okay. The one last thing, now that I know that they're gonna be doing the backups, we may want to find out where they're going to store those backups, whether it's a disaster recovery site or whatever, because, they could do a backup on the server that's actually running the software, and if the whole thing burns down, you lose everything, so.
Yeah,
you
our
have a
IT,
backup
our IT
on-prem.
person has been
Okay,
on top of that. He's pretty protective of our data.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, so he's on top of it.
That's a good question to make
It is a
sure.
good question, yeah.
Yeah, because I had to deal with that, anyway. So, yeah, it sounds like a good thing to do, and I like the name Laserfiche because fish reasons. It's long gone. Okay.
All right. Any other questions from council? We'll open it to the public. Seeing nothing, I'll bring it back to council.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the purchase of Laserfiche software and authorize the city manager to sign a licensing agreement and the first year's annual maintenance and support agreement with Synapse in the amount of $35,194.53.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Kelly? You again. You just stay up there for a second.
I have double duty here. Okay, good evening once again. As Finance Director Walker indicated in the budget workshop, tonight I'm bringing before you the position summary sheet from the budget, which talks about which positions we're allocating, there are funds set aside for in the budget. And there's basically 4 items for us to discuss tonight. The first is approving a police lieutenant and captain classification series. Next, we'd like you to approve increases to the police lieutenant and police chief positions. Third, add a deputy city clerk 3 records supervisor classification. And 4, receive an informational item on an assistant city manager position, all to be included in the 2019-2020 budget. As the council is very aware, there's a statewide police shortage that has made staffing police positions problematic. The city council has taken action to increase salaries to maintain competitiveness. Despite these efforts, we are still faced with potential losses. As you know, our police lieutenant excuse me, has accepted a position out of county, and we have had a tough time filling the administrative role. We've had a really tough time filling the sergeant position. And so when looking around, we found that the city of Clear Lake had a lieutenant/captain position. And we started looking very closely at that model and would like to present that to you for adoption. This would give us the ability to recruit the highest level that we can. And in order for that position to be competitive, we also would like to at least match the pay of the city of Clear Lake. A little bit more about that. So within the budget, the chief would like to look at moving one person up into a lieutenant or captain position, I think lieutenant, and then recruit for a lieutenant/captain at whatever level they are qualified for. So the recruitment would go out for either, and then we would just base where they're placed on their qualifications. So as part of that, those job descriptions are in the staff report. The salaries are listed. But at the same time, we also had to look at the police chief salary, which would be less than or very close to those positions. And so along with that, in order to maintain an appropriate scale, yeah, thank you. We're proposing that the police chief salary increase, and that is also matched up with the city of Clear Lake. Before I move on, are there any questions on that portion?
One question to the chief. If you move one person up into the lieutenant spot, and are you going to need another officer at that point, or are you going to see if somebody goes in with the lieutenant captain spot and then keep it as
There would be no additional bodies in our budget, so it would just be a restructuring of the operation, the organization, if that were to happen.
And also, it's also part of succession planning, making sure we get somebody at a higher level that would be able to move up at some time, get that going.
Move out.
Pardon?
No wisecracks.
I missed it.
It's just the trend, you know.
Yeah. Okay, I'll move on here. So then the second item that we have is the request for a deputy city clerk 3/record supervisor. This classification is requested to provide a promotional opportunity for existing staff into a professional level position. This is a crucial staff member who's performing above and beyond the scope of the current position. Under the proposed classification, the incumbent would act in a leadership role, and this would be also to implement the new electronic management system, train other staff, assist IT staff, and consultants with programming and customizing the software. This classification is on par with the police record supervisor and also the planning associate in the level of technical expertise required. So should the council approve the requested changes for all of the positions, an updated salary schedule will be brought to an upcoming city council meeting. And then the final and last position, as part of the city council's stated goals for succession planning, the city council had approved an assistant city manager assignment and stipend in 2017. This was to provide training opportunities for any executive management staff that might have an interest in the city manager position in the future. The city manager is now requesting that the council approve budget for a full-time assistant city manager classification, but only for half of the fiscal year. The costs have been included in the budget. However, the specific pay and job description would need to be brought back at a later time. When we get closer to recruiting for that position, we would bring that back. But the dollars are in the budget, so there wouldn't need to be a budget adjustment. Excuse me. So this item is just informational, but it does explain the position allocation sheet in your budget, or in your packet, that has a half of a position for assistant city manager. So if there's any more questions?
So down the road, are we looking to get a full-time assistant city manager?
Yes, so this would be full-time moving forward with the intent, I guess, of moving that person up into city manager if it works out, or whatever the council wishes. And then, yeah, so the half position is for half the fiscal year, but the intention is that it's an added classification. So.
Yeah.
And so that person who moves into that position as a full-time employee, then we would have to backfill their position.
That's correct. That position is an extra body, as opposed to the others that I talked about before were just reclassifying existing bodies.
And this is all about succession planning. And
right. And I just want to make sure that
ready.
I know how the steps are doing.
So the thing that's starting to concern me is the consistent comparison with other rates in other areas and what they're currently getting paid and what we maybe should pay, and then next thing you know, this person is not getting paid enough, and then they need to get paid more. It's just getting a little bit scary, and I understand the succession planning, but I'm not sure that all of this movement is necessarily going to stop somebody to go to Santa Rosa or Geyserville where they get $40,000 more, and to us to do the hold them here because we don't want them going to Clear Lake or something like that. I just feel like we need to keep our eye on the ball because this stuff is happening a lot, and we're looking at a budget deficit, and it's just starting to worry me a little bit when we start comparing ourselves with Clear Lake and all that kind of stuff as far as handing out. Because once you do that, then it's not just once, it's like always. And then it can only go up from there. And then it's all cruisable, so that goes up even, I guess, more than what it actually is.
Well, the fiscal impact costs, that is inclusive of salary and benefits on the staff report that you're looking at right now.
For this year.
For this year.
And then,
Yeah,
it's just that it's like just like the minimum wage thing that I see every day. You get 4 people with minimum wage increase, and then everybody else above them says, hey, wait a minute, what about me? And next thing you know, that goes up, and then you got 10 people getting $2 an hour raise, 40 hours a week, and it's thousands of dollars, and it's forever. It's not like just this year, it's like forever. And those kind of things, I think we just need to be cognizant of that, because it's not 80,000 now, it's 80,000, 80,000, 80,000, and it's going to go up and up. And then if someone else says, well, wait a minute, in my department, I'm running this, and they're making this in Clear Lake, and then it's another 10 or 15. I just want to go on record to say, let's take a good look at these things and be happy with them, and hopefully rein it in a little bit, because we start comparing everything in every department. Because normally we'd have like comps from all these different areas and what's the normal. And I know that we were holding the line and we were trying to catch up a little bit. But it starts to just make me, we're looking futures out there. The money that we put out this year is going to be bigger and more next year. And it's just going to go on and on and on. It doesn't stop, because what's like minimum wage is not rolling back. And there's a lot of victims out there to that kind of thing. And I don't want Lakeport to become one.
I see what you're saying. I think it's not just about keeping people here, because if they can get 40,000 more going over the hill, then there's not a lot that
I'm
we
just
can
talking about the
do.
overall landscape of this.
Well, yeah, but overall, we've had such trouble for so many years attracting new talent. And where we can, we've never had a full police force, I mean, maybe for a second in the 8 years that I've been here, and it's just constantly trying to attract new people. If we can keep the pay at a decent area, maybe that will help with that in the future. But I'm more nervous about adding new positions than bringing these up. If we keep adding a bunch of positions, that's where we're gonna see a bigger difference.
The one added position is probably only going to be for, year and a half, maybe.
Okay, that's what I wasn't clear. It sounded like we were gonna,
Yeah, it's
that,
succession
then-
planning. As I retire, then we'll have somebody ready to go to take my place is what I'm trying to get ready.
so when
And-
that person did take your place, would that position go away?
Yes,
Okay, that's what,
yes.
So it's not gonna be,
No, it's not going to be
It's
forever.
not
It's
gonna
just
be forever.
Yeah,
okay, I thought that,
yeah.
that.
And
yeah.
so
Well,
if we
that,
did
that all
have,
depends on how it washes out, because if you put somebody into the assistant manager situation, she retires, and he doesn't get this manager one, and you've already got somebody in his old job, there's a little bit of something, but yeah, if everything works as normal, you won't have an assistant manager forever. Only when somebody says, I'm gonna retire in 2 years.
yeah.
well, don't get me wrong, I am absolutely, totally in favor of
Yeah.
all of the succession planning stuff. I'm just saying that when you make one department, this person head over here this rate, and it just starts becoming, a hodgepodge of increases, and once those are in, they're in, and with the exception of
Agreed.
the assistant city
Agreed.
manager. And I think that we need to be good fiduciaries and keep our eye on the ball and do the right thing, and, it's like,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't have a choice. When this new measure came out, there was like one choice. You give them 1.2 million bucks a year, or you don't give them anything. Okay, so you either be a jerk or you give them all this money. There was not like a choice to go halfway in between. We had to give them the whole 1.2 million, 6 million in 5 years. Okay, then it's done. But
Yeah.
didn't we get a choice to do in between? So I'm just saying that maybe there's wiggle room. We need to make sure that when we do these things, we don't just do broad strokes and say, okay, this is all good, let's just roll it through. And I want us to be remembering that we have this UAL out there that's just brutalizing us, and it's going to take away services. In a few years, the benefits that we gained are going to go away, and the cost of that is just ridiculous, and we need to be aware that we have a responsibility to everybody in this community to be solid. And that's all I want to say, is just be careful that it just doesn't go crazy.
Very agreed, and these are all things that we discussed in the goal setting, our goal setting priorities then, so, we're just bringing back what we had all discussed at that juncture. But you're right, we've always told staff that we cannot compete with Mendocino County, our neighbors, what they're paying, and definitely not Sonoma, and definitely not Napa. But if we could try to stay competitive within the county, we've already lost somebody recently to the county for a much higher salary, and other places. And so those are really those two, the county and the city of Clear Lake, are our immediate competitive. We are. We're in competition and now there's more jobs than there is people all over the United States. And so it makes it tougher and tougher to recruit for the positions we need to fill, especially if they're the higher level positions. It's very difficult to get new talent here. So, and the cost of bringing new talent in is a lot more expensive than being able to continue keeping the talent. And I totally agree, it is a nightmare looking at the PERS, and we may have to make some decisions in the next couple of years that maybe, have to go a different route if this is, they're not going to do better, or we're not getting the revenues we're expecting to get. Based on the expected revenues, we're okay. If the revenues start changing, then yeah, we do need to take a look at, what's our next step then. I think you should analyze every year what the next steps are. But that's always been what we've talked about with council, is trying to stay competitive within the county, and knowing we can't stay competitive outside the county for these jobs.
But having said all that, I can't even imagine taking somebody, you know, like Rick Folsom, and he moves out, and then you put somebody in there, and, you know, the learning curve, and if you have somebody, you know, seated that's been around and understands and knows the landscape and has the background in community development, all that, what a benefit it would be to everyone to have that person be able to step in with succession planning. And the last thing you want to do is train a bunch of rookies in any place in your payroll, because it's a lot of times it's money thrown away because they can't stick because they didn't realize the job was so cumbersome or onerous. So I'm all for the whole thing. I'm just saying that we need to be ever vigilant.
Totally, it makes my hair rise and when I look at those pension obligations. And so, yeah, it is something that we have to analyze every year. And if we have to make changes and improvements and cuts, then, yeah, so be it, you know.
Any more comment from council? We'll open it to the public.
Suzanne Lyons again. It used to be that the city council hired 3 staff members. They were responsible for hiring the city manager, they were responsible for hiring the city clerk, and they were responsible for hiring the attorney. Several years ago, the city council gave up their right to hire the city clerk. I believe they still have the right to hire the attorney. So what this city council is doing, it sounds like, is deciding for the rest of the city councils. Some of you won't be sitting here in another year or 2. You're going to be deciding who's going to be the next city manager. When we interviewed for Margaret's job, there were lots of people who applied for that job, and they had good credentials. And there are people who still go to school and get public administration credentials. I just wonder about giving up the right for other people who sit in your chairs in another year or 2, or however many years Margaret's going to be here, and to have decided for them who the next city manager is going to be.
Well, I do believe it came up in the conversation, the whole concept of having an assistant city manager who is in that position, and then what happens if he doesn't get the job. So the job posting will still happen. We will still take applications, but there would be somebody who is trained to step in.
Well, these
If
other
somebody comes in vastly more qualified, absolutely, the most qualified candidate for the job will get the job. But it doesn't mean that we can't have somebody in the best possible position we can as a city to move forward.
Well, you're looking at a deficit right now in your budget, and this sounds like you are going to be hiring somebody else to take this other position. It sounded to me like what you said was for the police department you would be moving up, but is this another hire yet for the city? Are we talking about a new position?
Not in the police department.
No, at the city manager, the assistant city
But the
manager
budget-
position.
From what the budget stated, it's a half position, yes.
Okay, so you are talking about another position. And you're talking about the fact that you are going to hire somebody and then you're going to put the money into training this person, and then you say you're going to hire, and then you say to another city council, well, you should hire somebody else. This person that we've trained to put the money into is not the person that should get the job. Think about what you're saying.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Bring it back to council.
Oh, wait.
Oh, here he comes. Sorry. I didn't see you moving over there.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to jump on that and kind of echo the same feeling that maybe we shouldn't be picking the city manager now at this time when we have been able to get good applicants at the time that Margaret was hired. I was glad to hear Councilmember Parlett be very fiscally conservative and to worry about this. I think that we should worry about it. We have a lot of needs here, and this just seems like, in my opinion, it just seems like a place I wouldn't want to see the money go to an assistant city manager for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any other public comment? bring it back to council. Any further comment?
I move to approve new police lieutenant and captain classification series. Approve monthly salary ranges of $6,965 and $8,466 for the lieutenant, $7,679 to $9,334 for the captain, and $10,833 per month for the police chief, all effective July 2nd, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the deputy city clerk 3 record supervisor classification at salary range 44 effective July 1st, 2019.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I believe that was it, so the other portion was just informational. Wonderful. Moving on, Kelly.
Good evening once again. So the city has received the resignation of Jerry Driver, planning commissioner. Last fall, the city council appointed Councilmember Turner and Councilmember Matina to sit on an ad hoc committee that would do commission and committee selections. The ad hoc committee was contacted when this resignation was received by the city, and they reviewed the prior applicants and are recommending Brandon Disney for the planning commission seat.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council?
I saw that Brandon was supposed to be here tonight. He told me he was coming, so I'm not sure what happened, but he was intending on being here.
I just wanted to say I was really sorry to hear about Jerry, and I wish her the best. And
Public comment.
Kip Knorr. Good to see you all. Well, I'm here tonight to pitch myself as being on planning commission again. I believe that I'm more than qualified as a commissioner. My history of over 40 years as a general contractor, completing major residential and commercial projects up and down the state of California, always gave me the interaction with building departments, planning departments, as well as working with architects and engineers. So it was a pretty broad scope of education. Most importantly, my experience was with 2 years with the Parks and Rec Commission, and recently the 6-month on the Planning Commission. So I feel like I've got a good background in handling a Planning Commission position. I believe that the decisions that are made on a Planning Commission should be based on experience. And I feel like I have a great experience being on the commission at one time, and I feel that I'm not the kind of person who just rubber stamps anything that comes along. I always ask questions of any project that comes along. So having gone through that learning curve of the first 6 months of being on a commission, I feel like I can really hit the deck running for the commission. I love Lakeport. This is where I'm going to be until I'm done. So I'm proud to be part of all these other projects that happen in the city, and I just look for your support and your consideration to get on the commission. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there some reason that you didn't reply in a timely fashion to get into the at the time of this publication?
Yes, I had family issues out of state. I'd rather up in Oregon than had problems.
I mean, when someone doesn't, show up or
Understood.
turn in their paperwork on time, it makes it kind of a suspect situation. Want to make sure we got all the information, so.
Right.
It was kind of, they were both kind of notified late, so it
Okay.
wasn't
nobody's
really,
fault.
yeah, it wasn't very long that he replied.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment?
Good evening again, City Council members, Mayor, staff. I'm here tonight to address the City Council about the Planning Commission appointment to the seat vacated by Jerry Driver. It pains me to ask applicant Brandon Disney to wait longer. He comes from a highly respected Lakeport family, and he will likely serve our city well when his time comes, hopefully in the near future. Until then, I would like to invite Brandon Disney to come to our Planning Commission meetings. He can observe, participate, and contribute by speaking as a guest from the gallery during public input. I'm here to speak in favor of Kip Knorr. Bear with me a second. I'm editing myself tonight. I'm sure you'll appreciate that. I felt like Kip Knorr didn't deserve to be removed without a thank you for a job well done. As a city, we should be looking for qualified, thoughtful candidates that are here to protect the interests of the majority. Kip had already been performing the job well for over 6 months. He came up to speed with the rest of the Planning Commission very quickly after he took over for Harold Taylor, and he always came prepared with over 40 years of construction knowledge, dedication to the community, and an abundance of life experience. I believe it's easy for most people to see that he's the more qualified than the other candidates that applied for his position in December. After all, he performed well for over 6 months, and none of the other candidates can say that. Please vote to restore Kip Knorr to Planning Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? We'll bring it back to council.
I think this puts us in kind of a difficult spot when someone comes in and singing their own praises and someone else comes up and singing their praises and the person that we like to put on there is not even here, and I don't know that he's been to a planning commission meeting. So I'm going to have a really hard time supporting this particular situation under the circumstances.
Is there any other comment? I would accept the motion.
There are a couple options that the staff report lays out, so council does have discretion here when appointing planning commission. We won't be deprived of a quorum. That's a concern.
How about if I make a motion to approve Kip Knorr for Planning Commission on terms effective immediately to the term ending December 31st, 2022. There's a motion.
There is a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'm sure I understand the situation exactly. The terms.
Well, I'll make a motion to appoint Brandon Disney to the Planning Commission.
I already have a motion on the floor, though.
It failed.
It failed, I can't, okay. Motion failed.
There was no second.
There was no second.
So I was making a motion to appoint Brandon Disney to the Planning Commission to terms effective immediately, expiring December 31st, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No?
Aye. Or no?
Okay, so,
No.
So the motion fails 3-2.
Motion fails.
So do we want to advertise for the position again, or do?
So we can direct staff to further advertise the position?
By consensus, that doesn't require a motion.
No. I mean, that they both motions failed, so.
Well, how? This wasn't advertised in the first place, right?
It was,
Well, no, I mean,
Not this time.
these specifically,
This
we
recent.
contacted
So-
Disney and Mr. Noor and, you know, got to see if they were interested because they had already done the footwork and applied the first time.
Right.
I don't know, I personally feel like one of them should get it. They're the ones invested, they're the ones doing the work.
If you advertise it again, that doesn't prevent them from reapplying and having their applications considered again.
That is an option we have. They can reapply.
Is there consensus then to direct staff to review?
Yeah. Do we have consensus to repost? Is there anyone opposed to that
I'm not opposed to that.
besides me? I'm allowed to have my own point of view, thank you.
So is that the direction?
So we are directing staff to repost the position. It looks like by consensus.
Okay.
So done, next. City Council Communications. Margaret.
We have one more.
Do I? I checked it off early, I apologize. Kelly.
Actually,
No, that's Margaret.
it's Margaret's turn.
Margaret.
It is me, and I just lost my agenda here.
Yeah, I had that one for this office.
Here you go. There you go. Okay, AMG Associates, which is is the Pacific West communities that built the 42-unit senior affordable housing for the seniors. They are in the process of building 24 units right now for affordable family. And they have an application in, they will be putting an application in for California tax credit allocation for another 40, the number in here. How many units? 48, excuse me. Oh, I do have it in here. The second phase is 48 affordable family units. And so part of with the tax credit application, they want to see that the community participates in the building and making available affordable housing for families, seniors. And so they're asking us to do a deferred loan for the connection fee for the water and sewer connections for this project. And there would be a payback, the deferral 55-year loan paid through annual installments. So any questions on that? We've done these in the past for affordable housing.
Any comment from council?
So none of us will ever see this get paid, obviously, because it's gonna take 55 years.
Well, they will pay
I might get there.
annually some residual funds on it.
Yeah, it says 20%.
20% of the residuals, whatever that amount is, so, yeah. Anyway.
There's nothing from council. Any public comment? Not seeing any hands raised. We'll close the public comment. Is there anything further from council? Then I would accept a motion.
I move to approve proposed deferral and authorize city manager to sign all documents.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now can we do communications? Okay, Margaret, communicate.
I just want to make sure everyone out there knows that Friday, the 7th, this Friday at 2 p.m., we'll begin our dedication festivities for the Bank of America dedication. So I'm hoping everyone can make it out there on this Friday, 2 p.m. Bank of America building, 500 North Main Street.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
David?
No report. As promised, a brief update on the library park and downtown Wi-Fi project. There is currently a public accessible Wi-Fi network in Library Park. It was there last week, and by the end of this week, it should be turned over to the city so we can manage it. So they're still doing their testing. We'll be in charge of managing it, hopefully by the end of the week. It sounded like they have selected the locations for the downtown project, and I have a meeting scheduled with Andy to kind of go over and figure out who owns those buildings, who's managing those buildings, how we can start getting some hardware stuff installed to complete the downtown portion of that project.
Well, they don't need to go downtown because there's no benches to sit down and go into their laptop, right?
There
will be.
Thank you, Nick.
Of course, they're walking.
Paul?
No report.
Chief?
I just want to mention Margaret and I yesterday went to the statewide emergency preparedness summit in Sacramento, and there was some good information that we were able to obtain as far as helping with our ongoing preparation for any emergencies. Hopefully we won't see any this summer, but you never know. So
We're getting ready to get some kind of a kit out to instructions for a kit to everybody about the electrical, shut-offs.
And we have started doing some noticing. We put out some social media, I think, over the weekend on just general preparation for the public safety power shutdowns, and we're gonna, like Margaret said, a lot more coming over the next month or two. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Kevin?
No report this evening.
Kelly?
Just a reminder that the benefits fair is Friday, so if any of you want to enroll in city benefits, that is the time to do so, or
Wonderful.
contact me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Maria?
Just encourage people to attend the Senior Center second Sunday breakfast on Sunday the 9th. No, you're
Okay.
And there's one more thing, hold on, wait. Oh, the emergency preparedness for businesses presentation, which will be
yes.
on Monday the 17th at 5:30 here.
Thank you. Yes.
That's a big one.
Yes, and not just for businesses, anybody in the public, they're going to talk. PG&E is going to be here too to talk, answer any questions and talk about the program.
Wonderful. Thank you. Stacy?
No report.
Kenny?
I'm happy to report that the CMOA, years ago, we started a Hall of Fame to recognize coaches and referees that have dedicated decades upon decades to students and student athletes through the school systems, people that have been, teaching and coaching and refereeing since time immemorial. And we started recognizing a few of these, and whereby we got our names on the building over at the new police station for serving one term. These guys have, done this for 40 or 50 years. I'm happy to report that Forrest Ogner, we're inducting him in on the 23rd of June at the annual CMOA barbecue because of his outstanding achievements as a coach, as a referee and all that stuff, because he's spent, I think, close to 35, 40 years doing that. So I just wanted to let him, he's not just doing a great job in water, but he's doing a great job over there. And lastly, Margaret, I saw the beautiful invitation to the June 7th function, and it says a special thank you to the council members, but I think that you alone should be taking most of the credit for that, and you left your name out. It was conspicuously absent, and I think that was wrong.
What
Yes.
happened to your meeting?
No, I did get a little credit on somewhere else. But
Yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful piece of paper, but our names were prominently distributed, and this is the same kind of thing I'm saying, if you're in office, when they build, the new community center, you get your name on there and you've been on it for 4 years. I'm talking about people dedicated themselves for a long time, and you worked hard on that, and I think you deserve credit, and it should have been on there. But if you send it out, it would look a little bit, iffy. It was sent out by Kelly or something.
If it wasn't for all 5 of you, I wouldn't be here, so thank you.
So anyway, that's George.
Next week, the policy committees for the League of Cities is going to meet in Sacramento. And one of the things on the Transportation Committee is we're opposing AB 516, which is towing the vehicles. So
Yes.
that's
Right on.
one of the things we're
Thanks for
strongly.
bringing that to us, Chief.
Thank you, George. And I have no report. Meeting adjourned.